didn't have money and he didn't have things growing up. And now he has money, but he can't have things. So he's not like able to balance the two. Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and thank you so much for joining me yet again. If it is your first time here, and on this channel we chat about all things related to managing your money and adulting in general. So if that sounds like your type of vibe, please make sure that you check out our other videos, and if you like what you see, don't hesitate, smash the subscribe button and become a member of the team. Today guys, we are doing episode 3 of our recap series. If you are a bit confused and you're not sure what we're talking about, please check out the first 2 episodes of this series. We are recapping How to Get Rich on Netflix, and we are basically sharing our thoughts and what we think about what's happening in the financial journeys, the decisions that are being taken, and also the advice that's been given on the show as well. So if you're keen, you can check out the series, or I know a lot of people who are watching this video are only watching my recap series, which I think is really cool. So thank you guys for your support on the recap series, and a special shout out to the people who are leaving a comment after watching the video on what they think about what I've discussed, or what they think on how things unravel. Honestly, it's about the engagement for me, so I really appreciate you guys for taking the time to comment and share your thoughts as well, because I'm always interested to know what you think. Would you have done the same thing? Have you faced a similar situation? And how that goes, right? So speaking of which, and watching the series, guys, 2 things. Number 1, if you are like me, you've already watched episode 1 to 8 and you are done with the series, okay? So let's start there. I've already finished the series. And secondly, because of that, I'm going to restructure how I have the next episodes. So instead of recapping each episode like I have been doing, I realized that number 1, that's time consuming. Number 2, I've already finished the series, so it's very easy for me to just fall into the next episode and start discussing things that happen in the following episodes. So this is how we're going to structure our conversations. Today, I'm going to talk about the individuals that I've already spoken about. It's 4 of them and their financial journeys. And I'm going to conclude how their story ends and what ends up happening in the end. And then we are done with that conversation. Then this week still, I'm going to drop another video where I talk about the new people that get introduced. Their financial journeys are also very interesting in terms of where they find themselves in life. And then the last episode after that is going to be me concluding their journeys and where they end up. That way, we will be done with the recap series by the end of May. And you also get 2 videos in 1 week on one of the weeks, which I think is really cool, guys, because I've got other content that I want to drop for you. So I want to do that on a fresh slate at the beginning of June, knowing that we've already concluded these conversations. I'm really excited, guys, because like you might have seen, I'm using this series to have necessary conversations that we all face on a day-to-day basis. So for me, it's not just about like summarizing what happened. It's about saying, look, this is the issue and the theme here. This is what I've seen happen in reality. What do you think? What do I think? What can we learn from this? And what can we leverage off the lessons and people letting us into their financial lives and the challenges that they are facing? Because let's be honest, that doesn't happen every day. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to be like, oh, okay, this is similar to what I'm going through, or this sounds like something that I've been through as well. Okay, now to today. First up, we are going to talk about Natalie. Now, I am going to title this specific episode, Facing Your Financial Realities Isn't Easy, because it isn't. It is not easy. And we see these families now getting to the crux, okay, of their financial choices, as well as the implications of the choices that they've made. And it's becoming a bit tricky. So let's start off with Natalie, right? So Natalie, our resident rich aunt, as you might have heard, number 1, the purchase on the new house fell through. So we discussed in the previous episode that she wanted to buy a house, even though she decided to downgrade. She then found a bigger house and wanted to buy that. And the sale fell through. Now, guys, sometimes these things are blessings in disguise. Please appreciate that. When an offer to purchase falls through, trust me, even from my experience, I've seen that when an offer to purchase falls through, it's because what is right for you isn't there yet. And most importantly, when a financial institution says, no, you can't afford this, that's a good sign to actually take and be like, you know what, let me take 5 steps back. Because I know a lot of people now, especially with the financial institutions, they start maneuvering other options like borrowing money from their siblings or getting a friend to buy the asset in their names and all of those funny things. If a financial institution says no, best you believe financial institutions want to give you loans and bonds and finance. So when they say you can't afford it, then I'm sure they've done the due diligence to determine that. So treat that as a sign and move on. But with Natalie, I think it's just the purchase that didn't go through. It wasn't necessarily a funding problem. But even for her, I think this was a blessing in disguise. The second thing is that she has decided to put a pause on starting her business, which I also think is very important because there were a lot of question marks in this business deal, and I really don't think she had sat down to think about it practically and look at it from a numbers perspective and think about how much money, her money, she would have to pour into this business up until a point where it is profitable. So when she sat down to do the number crunching with her daughter, she was like, what? This is a lot of money, and I'm still being very conservative. So, which means if anything increases in terms of the cost that they have factored in, it's going to be much worse. And she decided to ditch that idea. And Ramit on the show says something that I completely agree with. And he says that sometimes it's okay to wait and it's okay to put a pause. And right now, from where she's at, she's decided to rent and not buy for now and just settle down, figure out what she really wants, put everything into perspective. Hopefully she puts everything onto a spreadsheet, not only perspective, but a spreadsheet as well, so she can really understand what the numbers are, because it seems like that's when something clicks, when she puts things on paper, because it's easy to dream, but when you need to make things practical, I think that's the deciding factor. So in terms of how she ends up, guys, she honestly doesn't change much, to be honest. She doesn't change much, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because remember that Natalie was brought here by her daughter. And from the beginning and in episode 1, she was convinced that she doesn't have a problem. So I'm not surprised that at the end, she's just like, I'm going to keep my advisor. I'll keep buying things I love because I feel like I can afford them and there are no problems, and I'll continue living my best life. So that didn't come as a surprise for me. And that's why I always say that you need to make sure that when you ask someone to seek financial help, they first understand the need for it and then they seek financial help. Otherwise, it's going to be futile. If a person doesn't think they have a problem, there's nothing that they're going to implement. So I think in Natalie's case, it really does help that she has a lot of money. So I think she continues to live her best life, and that's her. Matt and Amani is second up for discussion. So Matt and Amani did something very interesting. So by the way, they came back to the show and they decided that they want to continue. They sat down, they had a cuddly talk about their issues, and they decided that this is something that they actually want to pursue, right? Which I think is great, and I'm happy for them. They also did something on the show in the following episodes, which I thought was very interesting. So they sort of swapped positions. Now, remember that Amani was the one bringing home the bacon and Matt was the one looking after the kids, right? So now in these episodes, they actually swap positions and Matt starts spending more time looking for a job, and he also starts getting involved in the finances a bit more. And then on the other side, Amani starts looking after the kids more often than she did because she wants to give him, the opportunity to actually go out there and look for a job. And guys, when they swapped those shoes, each one started feeling what it's like on the other person's side. And I think this is such an important thing to also implement if you ever were in a similar situation, because Matt started saying, sure, I actually didn't realize that our bills were this much, or this is where our lifestyle was at. And on the other hand, he was like, okay, so we've got things like insurance and retirement. That's pretty good, because he wasn't involved on that side. And I think he began to understand more why Amani panics so much when it comes to money, because he feels like we're making enough, we should be able to save and stuff like that. But when he saw the expenses, it was like, okay, cool, this is what's happening. And then on the other side, Amani, who thought that Matt had the easier job of looking after the kids, is like, yo, after one day, she's like, yo, I didn't think that looking after the kids would be this strenuous or would take so much of my time and effort. And this job is clearly not easy that Matt is doing every single day. And I feel like that swapping of shoes and experiencing what the other person is going through was so important for the relationship, because I honestly do feel like throughout they were taking each other for granted. I feel like Amani was taking Matt for granted even more, because he like stays at home, he doesn't have to worry about the bills, and there's that connotation that you have it good, you should be happy. But he was actually quite stressed and tired as well, because that type of work does require time and effort and all of those things. So I really like what they did. And in terms of where they end up buying a property, they bought a new home, they are more comfortable in their relationship now. And I think Amani is slowly learning to trust Matt a bit more and realizing that he's worthy of that trust. And for me, that's a very important thing that I picked up in the beginning of the relationship, that trust and appreciation is an issue. And I'm glad that they were able to deal with that. And I feel like they've still got a whole lot of work to do, but I hope they're improving. Side note at the end, before we conclude that part, I really do think, guys, that Matt needs to find a job. I'm sorry, like I really think Matt needs to find a job. And that's because they've got very different money personalities, and their idea of their rich life is very different. And even if they try to combine that, but I feel like it will really help if Matt also has an income and something to put on the table, so he can also work towards the things that are important to him and very different from his wife. So personally, I hope even if he works like half time and gets a bit of money, I don't see Amani just like fully trusting him anytime soon or letting him do what he wants. She also felt a bit about giving Matt an allowance, like Ramit suggested. So if I were Matt, I would get a job. Even if I get a job part-time, but I would really get a job, start contributing something to the table, and also start, most importantly, working on some of the individual goals that I have. I feel like that's very important. So that's how I would change that story, but I'm glad that they're focusing on their issues and they're working well towards that. Yeah? Then Danelle and Monique. So Danelle and Monique were the ones that had quite a lot of debt, and with them, I'm so proud of the way that Monique really stood up and rose to the occasion, because she's not the one that came on the show, but she ended up being the one really steering them forward when it became difficult. And that's the thing about me wanting to title this video, Facing Your Financial Realities Isn't Easy, because Danelle had the idea of what fixing finances would be like and making sacrifices would be like and feel like, but when it came down to the crunch, he was like, what? I'm not going to buy sneakers. I'm not going to buy shoes. No ways. And he started like unraveling about how he really grew up poor and he didn't have. And now that he has money, the thought that he has money but he mustn't spend it is just like, it's not clicking to him. He doesn't understand. He didn't have money and he didn't have things growing up. And now he has money but he can't have things. So he's not like able to balance the two. And from a psychological perspective, especially where money is concerned, I get where he's coming from and I get why he feels that way. It might not be right, guys, but honestly, that stuff that we grow up with, it really, really does carry on with us. And we'll see in the other stories that we get introduced to as well. So I get where his mindset is at. And I feel like it still needs a lot of work, because they now having to sacrifice like additional storage space, start selling some of their stuff, not buy the things that they wanted to buy, just so they can, have joint goals, have a joint account, and work towards their goals together as a family. So I'm really proud of their progress as well. But I think for them, at the end, how they end up, they don't really tell us that they bought a house or they did anything major. I know that Monique, for her business, got a grant, which is really great. And what I want us to take away from that, guys, is the fact that your financial journey will not always be the same because of the circumstances and the amount of income. So the other couples and individuals have a lot of income, so they're able to bounce back from their financial mistakes quite quickly. But because Danelle and Monique have a lot of debt, a family to feed, and not that much income, they were not able to quickly squash that debt and buy a house. It's going to be quite a long journey for them. And I'm glad that they showed us this couple, because it shows us that not everybody's race is the same, okay? Once you face the reality, how soon you recover from it also depends a lot on what you can afford and what that capacity looks like and what your responsibilities are. And I'm glad they showed us that. But I'm proud of them. They looked at money quite individually, and now they look at money as a joint couple. They know that they are ultimately responsible for each other's goals, which I think is something that's very important as well, that they've learned. Super, super love their progress. But I think we must just be sensitive to the fact that they are going to take some time before they pay off that debt. It's a journey, but I think it's a journey worthwhile. And they are also realizing that. And I think as they squash those credit cards one by one, it's also motivating them quite a lot. And then let's talk a bit about Sophia. So Sophia is the one with the property that we spoke about quite a lot. It was actually our overline theme for the previous video. We spoke about this property and not affording it quite a lot. So Sophia ends up deciding that, you know what, she's going to take the plunge and she's going to sell the property. But first rewind before that. Before she decides to sell the property, she speaks to her mom about this decision. Now, I see in the beginning that her mom is very hesitant for her to sell the property because she's like, having a property is not about, which I get to a certain extent, but she says having a property is not about making money sometimes. Sometimes it's about your well-being and it's about you being happy and you being comfortable, which I completely understand. But I think that made Sophia a bit hesitant to actually sell the property. But then her mom goes on to say that, you know what, it's your decision at the end of the day. You need to decide what's best for you. And then she ultimately decides that it's fine. I'm really under, I think her total property costs were like 45% of her salary, her income, which is really bad because that means that a smaller increase in interest rates or any other additional cost is going to set her off into the red. She's already in the red each month. So she decided to sell the property, but we see at the end, in terms of how her story ends, that I think she backed out of selling the property, guys. If you watch the series, please confirm in the comment section, because they say that she now has hot water in her condo. She was able to get additional income and she settled some of her debt. So my guess is she thought about selling the property and then she was like, nah, I love this life. I don't want to let go. And you know what? I'm not surprised, guys. I'm not surprised. Making such a big decision after such a short space of time is unlikely. I was actually shocked when she said she's going to sell the property. So I'm not surprised there, but I really do hope that her extra income is significant and she's able to comfortably afford the property and she's not holding on because of the external pressure, the social pressure of wanting to keep the property, because that's what was holding her back initially. So I hope it's not that and it's genuinely that she can afford it now. If so, then I'm very happy for her, because remember, in order to have a good financial foundation and also have good financial health, you either need to, in most cases, to fix your problems, make more money or spend less money. So she had decided to spend less by selling her property, but I guess she got an opportunity to earn more and then she fixed her problems that way, which is a solution, guys. It's just that it's not always easily available for all of us. So that's the conclusion of how those families end up in terms of their financial journeys. There's so much to learn in their stories, and I hope that you are able to find a bit of yourself in a Sophia, a Natalie, or a Matt and Matt and Amani, if you are in a relationship and you were able to learn from some of the things that we discussed. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this episode. I really appreciate it. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to give me a huge thumbs up. And if you haven't done so, please consider subscribing. I will see you in episode 4 of our recap series. Bye, guys.